Joining us now is Anne-Marie Brady out of Auckland University, specialises in China relations and Chinese relationships. Anne-Marie, g'day, good morning to you.
Kia ora, Duncan. Just correct you. I'm at the University of Canterbury, though I'm Auckland born and bred.
My apologies. I don't know if that's a demotion or a promotion, but I'm going to go with it. Anne-Marie, tell us your take on this. How will the Chinese be viewing this? Because I see that they say that we've reacted with a bit of hype. What's likely to be the fallout?
Well, you're probably reading the English language response. So in the Chinese language sources, and in the most authoritative Chinese language source, which is the People's Daily, that's the Chinese government's newspaper, they're saying that the People's Liberation Army Navy Southern Theatre Command has deployed naval and air forces for training exercises to the high seas and far sea drills into the Pacific, and that it's an indication that China has now successfully shown that it can manage far seas logistics support chain. So we're going to see likely see more regular visits from the PLA, Navy and Air Force into the South Pacific.
Do you think this is going to force both sides to sit down and get some new protocols and some new standards of communication? How's it going to go from here? Because I don't think the Chinese are that happy with the response.
It's important that you say the Chinese government or the CCP government. The Chinese people are very different, and the people in New Zealand who are of Chinese descent are different. So the New Zealand government will be meeting with the Chinese government and no doubt trying to raise concerns about China's lack of information and early warning about what they intended to do. The first that we heard about these live fire exercises was when the commercial pilots got a warning that there were going to be live fire exercises across the Tasman Sea. Nevertheless, these vessels have been operating in the Australian waters for over 10 days. They've been going all the way down the eastern coastboard in the EEZ of Australia for 10 days. They also made a very slow transit, like a slow walk, through the Busulan Strait of the Philippines just before they came to Australia, which the Philippines government very resolutely protested about. So China's using the international norms of free transit of military ships and pushing them really to their limit. And there's not much you can do about it in terms of asking for new norms. But New Zealand needs a show of force now. We need to put a lot more money into defence, which is what the Minister of Defence and the Prime Minister said they're going to do. And we need to put some boots on the ground in our part of the Pacific. We need to talk to our partners in Fiji. We've already got a forward deployment in Fiji of our New Zealand Air Force. We need to do a bit more there. We can talk to Tonga and work with their Royal Tongan Defence Force, and also the Cook Islands, Niue, Samoa might be places where we want to put some of our New Zealand Army guys. And we want to see if we can get some drones and other state-of-the-art technology to better patrol our seas and show that we're not such a pushover.
We've taken our eye off the prize, haven't we? We've taken our eye off the Pacific. America has, Australia has, we have. All these traditional powers. We've left it open, and the Chinese government has come through the front door, and you can see how it's happened because we've allowed it to happen so easily.
Duncan, I don't think we've ever taken our eye off the Pacific. It has always been our priority in our foreign policy and in our defence. But the problem is how we have been relating to China in this particular situation. So New Zealand and Australia actually encourage China to operate militarily in the Pacific through agreements that we've had, through allowing military exercises. In 2019, you might remember that the PLA Navy did a training exercise in the Cook Strait. Do you remember that? And what did New Zealand Navy do? They trained with them and invited them into Wellington Harbour, and Victoria University hosted them. And there's many examples where New Zealand and Australia have legitimated or tolerated or turned a blind eye to the steady build-up of a military presence from China in the Pacific. And also there's been what we've seen is the development of what they call dual use facilities, so that's civil military use facilities. The Chinese government has managed to game the ADB and the World Bank procurement system, and they get the majority of the contracts across the Pacific for strategic infrastructure like ports and airfields. And they really undercut. I've been visiting projects up in the Pacific and talked to engineers on some of the Chinese projects, and they say that they have to do a really bad job because they just can't, they don't have the money in the budget that was pitched for to do a good job. So it's poor quality projects, but China's infrastructure and the local Pacific governments have to pay for it. So our government has got a lot of work to do right now. It's not going to be easy, but we need to look at how we offer aid in the Pacific, and we need to offer something to our Pacific partners too, to be more attractive. And they've been calling for better visa access, for example, into New Zealand. There's things that we can negotiate, that we can strengthen our bonds with Pacific partners.
I wonder why the Chinese government, though, was openly working with us in 2019. I think they were in Sydney Harbour as well at the time, part of that joint exercise. And yet 6 years later, the communication, for all intents and purposes, is poor. Not that they had to do any communication, but it's kind of like if we're building relationships with them, and we do certainly in trade, then it sort of would seem like manners. If you're going to be in someone's backyard doing live gunfire, you'd kind of, out of respect and manners, you'd tell them, wouldn't you?
Well, the gloves are off now. So this is, last week I wrote an op-ed about the China Cook Islands situation. I called it frog in a pot. You know, there's a famous metaphor about if the water's cold, the frog's not going to notice, and he's steadily warm it up until it's too late. So if you read the Chinese language sources, as I do, you could see what China's strategic intentions are and what its agenda was in the Pacific. And we've had some, I think, you know, based on previous practices and the idea that we could sort of, if we engage with China, we could try and change their strategy. And I think it's been very naive and foolhardy, and I have been raising concerns about it for a very, very long time in New Zealand foreign policy. More than 20 years ago, I was predicting that we were going to see a Chinese military presence in the Pacific and that China wanted to change its strategic order. And it's not that I'm a great seer. I'm not claiming that I've got this ability to see the future. I'm just reading the Chinese sources. And our government believed that we could negotiate with China and trying to change their behaviour, and that was very, very foolish.
What could happen around some sort of reaction from China? Could they hit trade? Because obviously, you know, it's a really big thing for New Zealand, our trading relationship. Certainly our exports to China, you know, it's worth billions of dollars. What could the Chinese do? Could they play games with us, or would they be more direct?